2021 is going to go down as the year of supply chain shenanigans and the dawn of hyperinflation. Get ready, things are getting ugly. Have you priced lumber or metal or anything lately, or tried to get even simple parts? So from the beginning here, we're waiting on tires for Plan Z. These things are not usable. They've got giant cracks in all of the sidewalls. You see right here? This is like in a process of separating. So this car's going nowhere until we get tires on it. I'm just waiting for the call, and as soon as they come in, we got them and go. We'll have, in theory, we'll have all of the parts for bottom rocket here before the end of this week. So ordered the lower control arm bushings, all of the stuff to make the brake conversion. So we'll be on this ASAP. And the GTX, we're still waiting on brake parts, gas tank, and other odds and ends. He bought another motor, so we're not. This one isn't going to go back in. We found enough things with this engine that it's not worth it. He found a virgin engine that's date coded correctly for the car. By the way, there's no such thing as a numbers matching 1967 Chrysler product. They didn't start actually numbering these things until 68, and even that's kind of sketchy. 69 is when you really get to numbers matching. But Andy wanted a date code standard bore engine because that's what he wants for this car, and he found one. So that's what's going on with that. And in the meantime, I'm working on my pet project. My goal is to slantify the world. The Miata. All right. So before I start showing you what I've got going on here, right? A couple of things I want to say here. I know nothing about handling. I know jack about handling. I barely know about stopping other than at the end of a run, okay? And I don't want to know anything about these things. They don't interest me. I am not a corner carver, right? I drive like an old lady. I've always got the mindset that when I go around a turn, there's a dog or something possibly on the end, you know what I mean? So I slow down. I'm a right lane driver. I get, you know, okay, that's me. Other people like to burn corners. Once we have this running, I'm going to find somebody who loves to burn corners, who knows autocross cars and setups and so on and so forth, and I'll have them tell me what to do with the suspension and whatnot on this car. So, that said, what I do know about handling are simple basics, right? And one is that you want the center of gravity of the car as low as possible. And two, you want the center of gravity as far back as possible. You want even weight distribution on the tires. Have I created the ultimate Miata? I believe I have. Let me show you what I got going on. So, here's the motor in its final resting place, okay? The engine is as far back as I can physically put it. It is as far down as I could physically put it. Here is the front axle center line, okay? 100% of this engine's weight is behind the axle center line. It's as low as it could possibly get. How far back and how low did I get this thing? Okay. I went to the limit. My finger right now is on the gas pedal. I'm manipulating the gas pedal, right? Now watch this, watch this. Okay, this is how I measured this thing out. Okay, there's wide open throttle. Look at this space here. Okay, right there and right there. I took this to the absolute limit. I cannot move this motor a fraction of an inch back, or that's it. Okay, unless I went to a completely different intake configuration. But we're going to stick with the stock Chrysler style intake. I can, at some point, if I feel like upgrading to a Holly, I'm going to have to make an adapter to mount the Holly on here, but it's going to have to be moved forward. But this is it. That's as far back and as far down as you could possibly get one of these things. People ask me about why not headers. Why didn't you use headers on this? Well, here's why. Okay, there's absolutely no room for headers. Here's the stock exhaust, and there's the space for it to sneak through, and that's it. You couldn't put headers on here. People asked about the dual manifolds. Okay, a total waste of time and money on an engine like this, on almost any Slant Six. These manifolds have beautiful runners. I mean, honestly, people never give these things credit for some of the engineering that's built into them. These things have long individual runners. They're beautiful. The manifold is beautifully contoured, and the opening here, when you dress it out, the opening here is more than big enough to flow the capacity of this engine. So, and when you split the exhaust, you lower the temperature of the exhaust. When you lower the temperature of the exhaust, it doesn't flow as good. Remember, heat is the lubricant of exhaust. And so that's why I'm more than thrilled to stick with just a single 2.5-inch outlet. That's all this engine is going to need. So, let's talk about other aspects of this. I raised the doghouse on here. So, this is a low deck 170, but I wanted to leave the option of a tall deck 225 on the table. So when I designed this, it's big enough to get the valve cover on and off. It's like no hassle at all on the 170, and still be able to get it on the 225. We can get a 225 in and out, no problem. Space over here. So obviously we can access all of the spark plugs. The oil pump and oil filter has got plenty of space. Actually, the same amount of space that's on an early A body you've got there. And same with our distributor clearance. We've got the same distance here as you do to the frame rail on an early A body. So we've got 100% access here. That's nice and easy. And at the back you could see if you come this way, you could see our access panel is open right now. So the starter is accessed through that panel, and also if I wanted to pop the transmission in and out of here, you just reach in through that opening and all of the transmission bolts are accessible, you know, with a ratchet with like tons of space to spare. Now, I could actually, I haven't done it yet, but speculating, I could probably get the transmission in and out of this car in under 10 minutes because everything is so completely wide open. Mounting. So I wanted the engine solid mounted. On the driver's side, we used the stock Chrysler bracket, okay, and then in its natural configuration, this and this fold over, and the motor mount bolts to that. So what I did was I cut these ears, laid them straight, and welded them back in, and then welded a piece of steel across the bottom here. So this actually bolts in the stock location from the Miata engine. So that's the driver's side mount. Passenger side mount, I had to do a little head scratching on. Here's the factory alternator bracket. Now originally I was going to run ears from here to the frame rail, right? And then I sat and I doped it out and I realized, I'm like, okay, I have like, there's no room. This thing is set in such a way that I can have zero movement front to back. So what I did was I added this piece of box tubing to the frame rail and then these two small ears. So there's no chance acceleration or deceleration of the motor moving in any direction. And because everything is solid mounted, it's the same as if I'm joining the strut towers together. I'm going to go one step further. So here's this mounting, and what I'm going to do is add a strut. Once the alternators get mounted over here, and there'll be a strut that goes from this tower or this pad right here to the actual frame rail. So this way it'll be tying the frame together just like when they put those cross braces on these things. And of course the motor is as low as it could possibly get. There's probably, I don't know, less than a 1/16 of an inch between the bottom of the motor and the rack and the front of the K-frame. And also, you see here I contoured the pan and the K-frame right here so that I can drop the pan in the engine. Now the pan is something I have concern about because I have no idea what the oiling situation is going to be. So once this thing is actually making turns like that, the oil is going to be going all over the place. So if there's oil starvation, I need to be able to take the pan on and off quickly so that I can play with baffles, add this and that, and make changes on the fly. So I took extra care when mounting all of this so that the oil pan comes down and out with. I took, like I do with everything that I build, I took every single consideration in terms of serviceability as my primary goal. right? Like, so, you know, the first thing I thought about is, can I work on it easily, quickly, no problem? And then, what are the effects that it's going to have on the car, and what changes do I have to incorporate to optimize those things? So, all of that said, I am going to go out on a limb and say that there is not a Miata on earth that's going to have a better front to back weight distribution than this, or a lower center of gravity than this. It can't be done. It literally, physically cannot be done. Jackpot, right? The proof will be in the pudding, of course. And overall weight. A lot of you guys were like, you're putting that big crazy cast iron thing in there. There's less than 100-pound difference between the 170 Slant Six and the 1.6 that was in it, 1.8, 1.6, the Miata engine that was in there. But let's call it 100 pounds. The transmission is lighter. And when you consider everything that isn't going for the ride, like that big pile of stuff over there, okay, net, this car is going to be, I mean, significantly lighter than a stock Miata. I'm going to speculate once this thing hits the scales, it'll probably be in the 1,950 pound range, with gas and oil and actually ready to rip. So there's our update on the Miata. And, you know, I get a kick every time I look at this thing. I just get the biggest kick out of it. And the march goes on. My next step is get the transmission in place, and then figure the pinion angle and build that pinion support. And I'll probably try to get that done before the end of the day. I want to get the major fabrication out of the way on this over the next couple of days, so that once the parts are here for bottle rocket, I could dive on that. So there you go. Have I created the ultimate Miata? We'll find out soon enough. I'll see you tomorrow.